always an illusion that once you've made it here, university's the great equalizer, you know, now we're all equal, you know, and men try to give me that argument all the time. Well, what's the matter? You're a law student, and you should feel equal to us. And I always ask them, do you feel afraid walking home at night? And they inevitably and invariably say no. And that is the big difference. So I don't feel equal. I really feel like I am not free and equal at all.
All our life we've been told that we can do anything that we want. Like we can become, you know, firefighters, we can fly jets, we can head a corporation, and still we can't, we need someone to walk us to our cars after dark. And like, just like picture like the vague comic irony of having to follow our friends home from leadership conferences. It's like we have to be constantly aware, but we always forget why.
I've been, you know, very scared walking down the street sometimes. Like, this was a good 3 minutes where I maybe, like, kept switching sides of the street or, you know, kept, like, looking around shadows at trees and stuff. And I'm thinking, what must it be like all the time? And, like, talking about it's fine, but that experience of being scared like that for just 3 minutes meant a lot more than words to me.
And the darkness of the campus, it takes you by surprise. You know, you're being independent, you're going to your classes, you're doing it, and then suddenly it's gotten late and it's dark, and you just realize that you're in danger. And you shouldn't be, because this is where you're at school, and you have to be doing what you're doing, and you don't have a choice. And suddenly you have to be afraid of getting attacked.
In response to women's growing concerns about violence, universities, colleges, and governments are taking steps to address safety on campus. One of these initiatives is the Safety Audit, a process developed by METRAC, the Metro Toronto Action Committee on Public Violence Against Women and Children. The audit evaluates the environment from the perspective of women's experience. When places are made safer for women, they are safer for everyone.
We've done a lot of buildings so far. We try and do one building a night. So tonight, our focus is on Douglas Library. We have done audits here before. It's a very large building. There's a lot of concerns by both the staff and the students who work here. And it's a public building, so it's especially important that we get some good data on this building, so hopefully we will see some changes come out of it later on. What I brought for everyone tonight is what we've called a volunteer safety audit checklist, and it's really a summary of some of the factors that we're going to be looking at as we go through the building. It highlights the different issues like the lighting, the signage, the isolation and emergency phones. And what I'll do is I will hand them all out to each of you, and perhaps as we're going through the building, you can fill them out, or you can sit down later on tonight or tomorrow morning.
Do you find the process slow in that it hasn't been hard to get volunteers to come out?
Well, I think when it's good, it's good. I mean, when people are interested, they really come out in droves. But some buildings, I mean, there's just so few women who work there. It's so difficult to get people to come out.
We got to change this word safety audit, because people don't know what it is. They honestly, I think if we could come up with something, a word or a little one-liner, so they don't have to read all the information we give them, and we don't have to go into the, you know, traditional definitions of safety, blah, 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 just so that we get people right off the bat, because we lose them.
Carolyn and I were on an audit, and as soon as I started talking about what we were doing, the man interrupted and said, well, there's your problem, you know. We think about safety in terms of health and chemicals and things like that, and, you know, this is just ridiculous. You're using this word. He was challenging our use of the word safety, and I think that's happened to a number of people. When we try to explain what it's about, they think we're going to, like when we went to the grad club, they're afraid we were going to check for bugs and stuff in the kitchen. Seriously. She told me, you know, we just had a health inspector come in here.
There's real behavioral outcome to people's perceptions. If people perceive the campus to be not well lit, if they perceive it to be densely overgrown,
If they perceive that they can't get in safety from one building on campus to another, or from their car to a class at night, then they just don't come. Or if they have to come, they limit the amount of time they spend. So I heard a lot from women who said, you know, I used to swim at night at the pool because it was really quiet, but I don't do that anymore because of, or I would never take a class at night. And that has meant that I've had to drop out of the program I was majoring in because some of the classes that I needed for my major are only offered at night. So it wasn't just that people had experienced an assaultive episode, or that they had seen other people or knew that other people experienced violent behavior. It was that women generalized from their experience of violence in society to the situations we have on campus and said, I don't think I can be there in safety.
I just started my PhD in physics at Queen's. Coming to the building, and it doesn't necessarily have to be at night, even on weekends, especially the design of the building that I'm in, you have to get down the hall to the doorway, which goes, you know, down the dark stairwell to wherever it is that you're working. A lot of the work I do, especially if I'm just, you know, flipping switches and doing routine measurements, you don't really have to be thinking very much. But if it requires any amount of concentration, then that's gone. You know, you lock the door behind you when you go in the lab and peer around the corners and phone up, okay, I'm coming upstairs now. It's very restrictive as far as getting work done.
My hours are 4:30 p.m. to 10:30 p.m. I'm a caretaker, and I have to go from room to room, open the doors and lock them up. There's that fear, you know, if there is somebody hiding there, what can I do? It's something that comes through your mind every day that that I am at work. I do think about it.
If you want to work past 11, you have to come here. Like if I had finished my work, or if I got really tired at 3 in the morning or 2 in the morning, I'd want to leave, and that was I had to think about how I was going to get out of there and the route I was going to take, because it is very isolated here. If no one's around, it's really creepy. They have all these little angles and little offshoots and hallways and things like that, and it's not very safe, I don't think.
I will not have especially male students come to my office after 5. There have been a couple of male students who've been in my office and have been threatening in their attitude and their way they stand and in what they're saying. And when the faculty, when the department floor is filled with people, I feel much more confident about standing my ground and saying, I'm sorry, you know, I'm not raising your mark or whatever. And I would not feel as safe if I did that after hours.
And when you said the statistic, 1 out of every 3 women will be assaulted, I mean, there are 3 of us here. So, I mean, I'm not trying to say or scare us, but I mean, that means 1 of us will be assaulted.
But it doesn't have to be
I don't want to be, yeah, but it doesn't have to be that way, but it is.
It is.
And we have to change it, that's what I'm saying.
That's what we're trying to do.
Yeah, we're trying, but the statistics are not getting any better. What we're proposing is communication. We have to start communicating. If we don't, then everyone is just going to say, well, it's not my problem. Like I'm saying, we wouldn't be talking about this if we weren't put here to talk about it, because we feel it's our problem, so we amongst ourselves talk about it.
We haven't been addressed about the problem. We haven't realized it's a problem.
That's what I'm saying. Communication. You haven't been addressed about the problem because you are male. We are female. We have been.
There's a failure in society.
We have been addressed about this problem before 4 years before we even entered university. This has been a problem.
Do you go around talking about, oh, I might get like raped or assaulted by a rash or deafened or
No, this is what we talk about. Here's an example. Natalie had to meet someone in Suds because she cannot walk home by herself today. So I told her, I will walk home. Exactly. I told her, I will walk you home, and I will get someone to walk me to the subway so we don't have to worry about it. That's what we're saying. We have to sit there, and we sat there and we said to ourselves, can you believe this? We got to look around for people to walk us home.
But I walked Natalie home.
If we canvassed many of the male students at some of the campuses and we say, you know, are you perpetrating any violence? They would laugh it off and say, I'm not a rapist. I'm not a spouse beater. In reality, I think what's missing is an education in society generally, and I think that what we have here is just a microcosm of society. The harassment, the sexism, the sexist jokes, the comments, I think are just so much part of society that I think that what's happening here is the men are just following what they've learned all along. I don't think it's any different at George Brown College than it is anywhere in society.
Okay, there is a problem, and what I'm saying is that you guys, I don't care what anyone says, no one really cares about the problem unless they're directly affected by the problem.
I think it's generalization.
Because no, it's not, because I know before my cousin was raped, I didn't care about being raped. Rape didn't bother me. It was like, okay, yeah, well, it's probably those kind of women. Right? But when my cousin went through it, it is the worst thing you can see a woman go through is being raped.
Was it someone she knew?
Yes, it was someone she knew. It was her own boyfriend. Okay? And to think it got thrown out of court. Now,
I was aware of security concerns on a conceptual level, having read journals, talked to peers, and so on. It's one thing to be aware and to talk about these kind of issues. It's a very different thing, I found, to sit down face to face with individuals who daily live with this kind of fear, which I had never dealt with before, was not able to understand, and had some of these people put that fear into this university's context.
I think that we really weren't expecting to have a rough orientation week, and everyone is just so taken aback. They really weren't expecting it. And it came from places where we weren't expecting it. You know, we expected to come from the engineers, maybe. But that's not where it came from this year. It came from everywhere. The varsity, in general, takes a very proactive stand around these issues. People are getting fed up with us. All of our editorials, including the next one, because of these assaults, has been on violence against women and date rape since the beginning of the year. And everyone says, you know, the varsity hits people over the head with it, and it's like, well, you know, maybe we did, but look what happens. You know, no one's listening. So we had a discussion about it yesterday when we were deciding what the editorial should be on, and people were saying, well, a few people were saying, but that's what we just did, an editorial on date rape. And well, since we did that editorial, there have been 3 assaults that we know of. So we're going to have to do it again, you know?
I would say safety in the residences, especially for women, is a constant and ongoing concern. We hear of sexual harassment maybe 1 a year. And I know statistically it's much higher than that. I know that was it 25 to 30% of all the sexual assaults on campus occurred during orientation week, and that involves the residences primarily.
I heard all this sound, and I'm used to it from orientation week, just all these people doing cheers and stuff. And so I kept walking, and I was kind of in a daze, and then all of a sudden, I started hearing these noises, like these howls, and like kind of like, hey, baby, and things like that. And I looked over, and there must have been about 300 engineers sitting on the front lawn, all looking at me, and all like pointing and screaming. And it was weird, and I was just, I don't know whether I was just freaked out or furious or what, but
one of my roommates has a really good term for it. He calls it negative male energy. Like when there's a group of guys together and they're all sort of, you know, bonding away and, you know, and there's this, you know, big, you know, macho thing going on. I mean, even if it's not a bunch of particularly macho guys, when they get together and all the testosterone starts flowing and they just get into each other. And,
you have to, I think, to a large extent. I mean, this puts a lot of responsibility on the individual. But I think that individuals have got to turn around and go, look, I'm sorry, but do you have any idea how frightening that would be if you were on the receiving end? And they might laugh and they might not appreciate it, but if you say it often enough, they might start thinking about it. And if you start saying, that could be your sister, then maybe that makes something different to them. I mean, it might mean something closer to their heart. And I think that that's where you've got to do. Men have got to interact and take responsibility for the actions of other men in this issue.
Nick, what I heard you say, it really moved me, because I'm thinking, I just never hear this. It really freaks me out. And I think, you know, all guys aren't idiots. I know that. It's true. It's just that I never hear guys saying positive things, or just, you know, guys that, like, support women don't go, you know, hey, like, I mean, I don't know how you say, like, hey, I'm on your side, but...
Relationships that we have are so fragile nowadays that because of all this violence and everything, even men that aren't like that really care about women, can't express it because it's taken as something threatening. And it's terrible how it's pushing them apart like they're almost two species.
I hate the fact that that kind of thing exists, that when I'm walking down the street and, you know, suddenly there's a girl who's approaching me from the other side that, you know, well, God, I think, well, I just got self-conscious. Just because somebody's coming, but boy, they just got really self-conscious. I mean, what if I'm a little drunk and kind of staggering a bit? I'd hate to think, like, I like to think of myself as a fairly harmless person, and I'd hate to think that this person is scared of me just because I'm a guy.
If you have someone who sexually assaults women, it's not that he thinks it's okay, he's sick. He's like crazy, or he's just out there. I mean, like, you don't really, like, you can't really just sit him down and say, listen, what you're doing is wrong, we'd like you to stop.
But the question, like, whether or not it really is sick, I think is very debatable, and I would tend to disagree. I think that to a large extent it's just an extreme of a problem that is prevalent throughout society. I mean, it isn't just sort of mad people. It's fathers who beat daughters, and it's husbands who beat wives, and it's friends who rape friends. It's not just sick people out there.
It's sick people.
Well, they're doing something wrong, okay? I do not believe that you could commit an act of violence against some person if you are capable of recognizing that a woman was a human being with feelings, a life of her own, and that she lived every moment of every act you did to her. You would be incapable of performing a violent act. It is because you don't recognize her existence. You do see her as a piece of entertainment. It isn't that you see TV as not entertainment.
We know that the reporting of these types of acts of violence are grossly underreported by women. I think universities overall have to realize that these types of crimes, these acts of violence happen on campus. They happen frequently, even though they don't get reported. And I think that what we have to do is get the total community involved, faculty, staff, and students. I've noticed incidents where it was only when the students become actively involved and push for change that change have come about.
We'll walk you all through the building, and we're going to start taking a look at some very specific issues that affect our sense of comfort in this building. And perhaps we'll start at the bottom and we'll work our way up, and as time permits, we'll walk. I think there's a lot of denial going on, though, because, you know, we start at the beginning of an audit in the evening, and, you know, we say, well, do you feel uncomfortable, or do you have a sense of insecurity here? And, oh, no, I'm not afraid, I feel fine. And by the end of the evening, we're all swapping stories about how we get home at night, how we, you know, put our keys between our fingers, or we call someone before we get home. And it's almost like we're all doing these things, but nobody's willing to admit that they really are nervous.
It's frightening in the stacks almost any time of the day because there are no windows. You're down below ground. So as soon as people start turning the lights off, which is what I did at midnight, you're in pitch black. You go out into a lit stairwell, but at the same time, it's difficult for one person to know that there's no one else there. Whether or not it's somebody who's there to assault you, certainly somebody who's there to intimidate you can make you feel very uncomfortable with being stuck in there.
Exactly.
Oh, wow. Okay.
After a few minutes, I noted he was looking at me through the books, and he sat on the seat which was ahead of me. It was empty at that time. And a few minutes after that, you know, I noted, you know, he was breathing so fast and loudly, and he was looking at me through the books. It was really scary. I packed off my books and dashed away from the place so fast. Yeah, so actually you feel very trapped in.
Hopefully future building designers or library planners will take that into account, so that we're not enclosed in almost an entrapment site, that there'll be an exit on the other side of the study area.
Quite often, senior administrators, they work a 9-to-5 type job. They often work in modern buildings that are well lit. They get to park close by the building, reserved spots, and they really can't understand that, you know, it's very intimidating, very frightening for somebody to have to work on a research paper or come in early in the office or work late at night and have to cross a long parking lot where the lighting is bad, or have to go to the student council room, you know, in an isolated area of the basement, or cleaning staff have to go to a cleaning cupboard down in the basement or an isolated area of a building.
Historically, when women haven't been part of the solutions that have been put forward by institutions, there have been problems. The so-called solutions have not been effective. Crime prevention programs that focus on property crime don't help with the crimes that women are concerned about. Often the solution to violence on campus is to try to create a fortress mentality. And of course that supports the mythology about Mr. Stranger Danger.